Hey guys, welcome to the podcast today. I just want to let you know and kind of apologize because my mic was doing something weird throughout this episode, but it was still a really, really valuable and good episode. So hopefully you can bear through the not so great audio quality of me talking. But I hope you guys can still enjoy this podcast and this really awesome conversation that I was able to have with this very special guest. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Hello guys, welcome back to the podcast. We have an awesome guest today I'm very excited about. Her name is Kira. She honestly has so many credentials. I couldn't possibly say them all, but I mean, you are a founder of Paradigm Consulting. You do consulting for female business owners. You have a ton of experience in the field of business and all of that stuff. So I'm super excited to dive into a lot of great stuff. She's a badass lady, has a lot of value, a lot of wisdom to share on the pod today. So yeah, if you want to introduce yourself quickly, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that was really nice. I was actually writing a bio the other day for like a pitch webinar that we're doing in a couple months. And it was like one of those activities where it's like literally dump it all out on paper. And I was like, I know this is supposed to be really like, motivational or whatever, but honestly, I just feel like old. Because like I was like, this has just been like one thing. I don't know, but of course, like you're in the game long enough, like things stack up and they sound a lot fancier than they are. And it's at its core, like we're an HR consulting company. I'm the founder. I believe in running lean, powerful teams, and I think work should be fun. So building a fun team is like the cornerstone to running a fun business. And we do have to be compliant and we have to be smart about what we're doing. So I don't know. I just feel like there would be more business owners if it wasn't so freaking terrible to have to scale. And I think that the fun part of building relationships with team is what keeps women in business longer. So at its core, that's what we do.
Yeah, I love that. Just before the podcast, we were just talking about how I'm very new into actually managing a team and building my own team. That's been something super new to me, and something that I was not expecting is that managing my team and working with my team has turned into my favorite part of owning the business. Like
Cool.
Working with them, being able to work with girls I love, and yeah, like pour into them, like make that culture of a business. That's now turned into my favorite part of the business. So I love that you said that. That is something that we're going to talk a lot about today, because I know a lot of people that are listening are kind of in that same boat. Like maybe you're about to make your first few hires, but you don't, I don't know. There's always that hesitation there. It's a big barrier to get over.
Oh my God, yeah.
Or you're in that first few months of managing a team and you're like, am I doing this right? What am I supposed to do? So maybe just to start it off, tell us kind of what that was like for you. Like when was your kind of first few hires? What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I had a bit of I would say in entrepreneurship, I've had a bit of a shortcut because working as an operations COO, director of operations in HR for 10 years prior to, I started my business 3 years ago. So I guess it was about 7 years of experience coming in, but I'd been hiring and managing people for another business, which I think kind of gives you a little bit of freedom for me to like explore different things without it having to feel so heavy. So there was lots of different strategies that I tried in building a team of, I have 50 people that we manage in 2 different locations here in San Diego. But over time, and I think we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but it became really obvious that I had to figure out how to delegate things so that it wasn't just me running 50 people, but learning those hard lessons of letting go of control and building a team of managers and directors instead. And so over the years, I was able to do a lot of this exploration and figure out all these systems and frameworks while working for someone else that gave me a lot of freedom to explore that. So by the time I started my own business, I already had an arsenal of tools and lessons. That did not stop me from freaking the F out. Sorry, I didn't want to swear. When it was time for me to hire someone on my own business for my own team. And that, if that doesn't say like I'm a professional hiring person that does HR compliance in California of all places, that it still was scary to me and I put it off for too long. Like I just want everybody to feel seen and heard, especially you're new to having a team, owning your business, all of that good stuff. Like there's nobody's walking into this, no matter how much experience you have, like, I got this. Like everybody, we all have to figure out our own way to do it. And that's why I don't think a lot of the advice that's out there that's been published over the last few decades has really made any difference for the businesses that we're building as women in the online or remote team space. So I think it's really fun to kind of humble things a little. Like, yeah, I've been through it, but like I wasn't, necessarily like walking into my business like, let me hire a team tomorrow so I can scale. It's scary, and it's a minefield of emotional stuff and mindset stuff and learning who you are as a leader and leaning into that and all of it. So it can be a different version of pain even when you've done it before.
I think that's so validating. So many people listening to hear, I think a lot of people in entrepreneurship, because for me, like I didn't have any experience going into it. So that was a big thing for me to get over, like a limiting belief. So it's nice to hear that even if you did have the experience, even if you did have these tools in your tool belt, which is so valuable to have, you're never going to get over the fear. It's still going to be a scary thing. It's still going to be something new. So that's super validating, I think, to hear. And you said something so important, the letting go of control. That is the biggest hump to get over for me. Because once I did it, it was like, oh, this is good. I'm taking things off my plate. But even now, I still kind of struggle with that a few months in. Just reminding yourself that other people can take things off your plate, knowing when to delegate. I find myself doing so much work sometimes, and I'm like, I pay people for this, and I'm still doing it. And it's not their fault. They're like, hey, give me more work, and I'm like, sorry, I'm doing it all.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's not. I don't know. I've listened to a couple of podcasts lately. I have my own podcast and, been doing some interviews and things like that. And I feel like it's just this weird thing that sucks that people are like, I've got all the answers. And like, yeah, I do have a lot of answers. Like, I'm happy to like pour it all over the place. Like, let's talk about it. Let's walk through it, whatever. But every person is different, and having a different personality when you're leading your team isn't a hindrance. Don't try to like fit yourself in someone else's box. Like people are always like, I know you're an HR curator, so you probably hate it when we hire our friends. And I'm like, I don't know, how qualified is your friend? Like, do you work well together? Like, I would never say, like, that blanket advice is stupid. Like, and also never has my imposter syndrome been more apparent than when I'm personally managing my team. Like, the laying awake at night thinking about, it's not about what I say to my clients. It's not about what I say on some podcast, which, trust me, not always the smartest moves, or I just go randomly like off about Scandival or something. But at the end of the day, like it's so annoying. And like, I know that's you're like, I didn't bring you on here to do this, but I will say that especially if your audience is new to building a team and growing it, like just throw it all out the window. Like you're always going to be growing. Like you're only a few months in, and a year from now, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, what I've learned, like been open to learning every single day has made me so much better, so much different. My business has grown exponentially based on one lesson that I had to uncover in a communication error with my team members. Like, we're going to learn all the time. Like, I just hate all this stupid advice. I'm so annoyed of it.
I know. And when I'm actually in my business, all the kind of blanket generic advice that everyone says, you throw it out the window. It's completely failing upward. It's mistake after mistake, and you just have to keep going and kind of be okay. And it can feel so much like the world is falling apart when one little mistake happens, and then you're on the other side of it and you're like, okay, you know what? I learned. The world kept spinning. It's going to be okay. Yeah, really scary. I know that you've had to deal with a lot of burnout and sort of overworking yourself, and then navigating how. I'm asking because it's a podcast, I want people to learn, but also like, for myself, how do I get out of that? Like, how did you go from, oh my God, I'm literally so burnt out, struggling mentally, I have so much on my plate, how do I organize this, delegate this? How do I figure out what I should be doing? Like, how was that transition for you?
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, I think it's a long journey, of course, but I got a lot of leadership education, traditional education. I have a master's in organizational management 10 to 15 years ago. Like when I first graduated college, I met my husband the first day of training for my first job. And I was like, I just moved to San Diego from college. Like, screw this. I'm not having a boyfriend. Like, get away from me. But of course we break every HR rule in the book. Like, we're now been together 12 years. Like I've done all the things that they say HR is you're not supposed to do. But what really kind of not just my husband that left that job with me over time, but I also left that job with a lot of really bad experiences. And I was in a really toxic place. And I was like, that's just how work is. Like, this is my first job out of college. This is just how it is. You have to get yelled at by your boss. You have to get ridiculed in front of other people that perform at a 25% of what you're performing at, just because they're 45-year-old white men. You have to get, like, that's just the way it is to be at work. That's the advice that my mom told me when I called her crying in the car. You got to put in your time. You got to put in your work. Of no shade to my mom. But that's just what people are taught. And so when I went into, I wanted to leave that job so badly. And that's actually not the job that gave me the really bad burnout, but I convinced a bunch of my friends to quit. We all went traveling in Europe together, came back, and I was just like, I am not working in a cubicle again. Not doing it. Already got the husband or the boyfriend from the job. Like, I'm leaving that in my past. Like, whatever I have to do to not have to do that again. That's what I'm doing. And so I got a job at a local small business. I started at an entry level position, but since I had a master's, I moved up really quick. Just started to try to show my worth by taking on a bunch of other people's jobs and learning, and just thinking in the back of my head, what can I continue to add to my resume for my next job? That's literally how I started all of this in the first place. And I'm still at that company. It's been 10 years. I'm the COO. I've learned everything I know from working within that company, but I work there one day a week and I get paid a full-time salary because I'm absolutely indispensable. And I've built my entire career around making this small business succeed. And the way that it happened was the lesson that I've learned, which is essentially about 5 years in, I was taking on all these different people's roles. Somebody in leadership would quit. I'd be like, give me that job and add on to my salary. I want to be able to live here in San Diego. This is a small business. I know we can't just be paying 6-figure salaries, but that's what I want. Kept working my way up, and to the point where I was doing what is now 7 different people's jobs, depending on the day. It was 5 people. We hired 2 new people recently for the same exact job. So literally, even now, as the company's expanding, that footprint is expanding. And over the course of this time, I had this moment where I was doing all these things, and I was obviously trying to be everything to everyone, to show my worth, to prove my value. Just, I deserve to get paid all this money from this small business. I deserve this because I'm doing all these jobs. The operations were seamless. Like, there was almost I was showing up every day, but really it was the 50 people that were relying on me. I was their direct supervisor. There was no other people that was between me and them. So at the end of the day, that's what got me to a point where I got a phone call and I literally couldn't go into work. Like, I finished my workout in the morning and I was supposed to go into work, into the office, and I just couldn't. Like, I literally had a mental breakdown. And I don't mean that in a way of like, I'm having a mental breakdown, like we joke about, but like in a real one. And I had to call my mom, who's a psychiatrist and making her second appearance on this podcast. But essentially she had to give me Xanax. I had to be medicated. I'd already been in therapy, but I had to go like up the dosage of therapy. And then it came out that after I recovered from this breakdown, I literally just had to go completely off the grid, had to tell my boss, like, you deal with the business. I can't answer my phone. My phone's still ringing off the hook, all this stuff. Told my team that I'd been developing for a while. I can't do it. You guys figure it out. Like, I literally can't even delegate how to lead these people because I can't function right now. And in a very humbling experience, no one was any of the wiser. The team stepped in, they did their jobs. They were just waiting for me to have a mental breakdown so that they could step into what they'd been learning and developed into all these years. And those people are still with me, between 8 and 10 years of tenure under their belts working for me. And it was super humbling to be like, wow, I put myself into this position by not giving up control, not delegating, not offering up space for people to make mistakes, to a point where I've now been diagnosed with PTSD from burnout. And that is on me. That's not on my boss. I mean, granted, I think as a leader, I've learned not to let people get into that role, but that was on me and what I put myself through and what I felt like I needed to do. And so now we have a company that has a team of 7 managers and directors that are doing the job that I was doing while I oversee them. And immediately the next year, about 6 months later, our income started to increase. And now we have an average of a 30% higher income ratio, because even though we have more people in higher level positions, we've turned that around into higher revenue markers, more tenure for our team, more productivity, a better work environment, more retention. And it's like, basically I was costing the company money the whole time by not letting don't tell my boss, but like, don't, let myself go. And then basically during COVID, we were able to make it through COVID because that happened, because we had a reserve of cash that we wouldn't have had a year and a half prior. make it through as a small business with massive overhead. It's a little kid swim school, so we have private pools in multiple locations, so it's not like rent is $5, it's like a big deal. And throughout this whole process, it just kind of showed me that most of the time, as leaders, as business owners, as partners in businesses, we are the ones holding our businesses back from growth because we put ourselves in horrible positions. Who won in that scenario? No one. Not one person won in that scenario, except maybe like my therapist. But I still don't think that she would like necessarily love that. But you shouldn't get like diagnosed with this burnout to the point of PTSD, which is so common. As I've shared my story, I've heard from other people. The thing that people get in war, what the hell? Like that's not, I still, every time I tell this story, I'm like, Kira, you're an idiot. Why did you do this? That's crazy.
Like that's like not a unique experience. I had no idea that was such a common thing, but it is. I mean, I feel like when you're in that, it's so hard to feel like you can get out. And you probably, I mean, you have literally the weight of the world on your shoulders every single day. You're just in this sprint, and you're like, okay, I can do the next thing. Let me handle the next thing. And then it gets to a point, obviously, where you can't anymore. But it's really beautiful to hear that you were able to take a step back and do what you needed to do, and the business kept running. It was actually for the best that you were able to go. Then your team stepped up. That's such a cool thing, because then, like you said, that was kind of you pouring into them all of that time, and when it came down to it, they were ready to take that on. I think that's a good thing for all business owners here, or really any management, any sort of team of people to hear, is to have faith in your team. And I think I need to hear that too. So I think my team is amazing. Sometimes I do myself do things, and then when I give that control, it's not always easy to delegate that immediately after. I'm like, wow, you know what? Sometimes I'm like, wow, they did better than I could. Like, they're better than me. What am I thinking in my head? It's crazy. But it's really cool how you are about that. I mean, I think diagnosed PTSD from birth is, it's crazy to even think that's a thing. I think that's such a just 2023, like, of course that happened. Like, people are putting so much pressure on themselves, and it's definitely not spoken about enough, in my opinion. I love that you're somebody that's talking about it. You have a really human approach to business, and I think that's an awesome thing, especially like as women. I feel like the classic entrepreneurial stuff, and I love consuming male entrepreneur content as well. I think they have a lot of great things going on. They don't have a super approach typically. I'm not trying to be like generalize anything, but not a superhuman approach, and you definitely do. So it's cool that you're actually speaking about mental health related to entrepreneurship, because I hadn't heard much about it, and definitely I've in the last few months been dealing, and I try to be open about it too on my podcast and my content, but I was struggling a lot mentally, which was shocking to me, because like in my past, before owning a business, I went through things that were more, actually traumatizing, or, I say that word, like more classic things that people would be like, yeah, that's a traumatizing experience. Yeah, that is a hard thing to get through. Yet I got through those things rather easily. I'm in therapy, whatever. But then my business, entrepreneurship, the stress of that is what really got me. And it like scared me, because it's like, I've never had my mind be the way it is right now. Like, this is a scary thing. And I felt very alone in that. So I think that's something for sure that needs to be talked more about. What inspired you to talk about that publicly?
I mean, it was literally just discussions like this. Like, I didn't start my business thinking that my personal life or my journey was of relevance. We do HR and growth planning. Like, why would anybody care what I've been through? But I think that when not only do you make it your business to help people be leaders of people, there's a vulnerability aspect that comes with that. And if you're not, even as a leader or as, a mentor or an entrepreneur that is influencing other people, or even just somebody that's out here creating content about owning a business, like, you really do have to tap into your vulnerability in order to like really make an impact. And I have noticed that there's a really common thread between the best leaders and business owners that we work with. Sometimes it's managers, sometimes it's CEOs, just kind of depends. But the best leaders and their willingness to be vulnerable with their teams, and be vulnerable with their mistakes, and be vulnerable with their clients. My team, I've had team members I've had to fire in my own business. I've had team members that I've carried around, the mistakes that I've made with them. Like I've also done really stupid stuff. Like one time I accidentally flashed my number one person on camera because I rented a shirt and I was like showing it to her and I literally flashed her and I was like staying up at night staring at the ceiling like I can't believe I flashed her. I'm in HR. She's my most important person. Like of course, like we're very close. She's worked with me for a year and a half. She did not sue me. But like I have made physical mistakes in this journey, not just like, dude, like I didn't tell you your KPIs or give you your job description soon enough. Like I've straight up shown you my boobs. So like, and I feel like if you're just sitting around talking about HR the way that I was taught it, I would be on my computer 8 years ago, for example, like a couple years into management, like how do I tell this employee this thing without making them upset? How do I do this without getting them to quit? There was nothing out there for me. And so when I think that as entrepreneurs, we lean into our expertise and authority so much that when it comes down to managing a team or being vulnerable with other people, connecting with other people, or just like learning stuff that you shouldn't know HR. You shouldn't know management off the top of your head. Like that's a skill. You know, you can be an awesome leader, but a skill that you develop is managing them into their best and running a business. And for some reason, entrepreneurs there's so much shame in maybe not hitting the mark with your team every single time. But that's in my opinion, that's the one thing that you shouldn't expect to hit the mark in every single time. Those are human people that are developing and evolving. So why is there so much shame? I mean, we've had clients that straight up have us sign NDAs. They don't want anyone to know that they're asking us for help because they're an authority in the space and they don't want to come off as needing to learn how to lead a team because they find shame in it. And I'm not their therapist, but I do tell them, dude, if you would just join this community and be open, you're going to find so many other entrepreneurs that are mirroring back these same concerns to you. You will feel less alone, but there is no shame involved in it. You shouldn't know how to do this. I've been doing it for 14 years and I still accidentally flash people. So like, you know, what are you going to do? Like, don't take it so seriously. Of course we want to do our best. And of course, like after the fact I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. Like whatever, we have a relationship. She was just asking me about my shirt. Like, I can't believe I'm even talking about this, but I feel like there's a certain element of being a leader that you kind of just have to be like, these mistakes happen, even though I feel like I know everything I can and can't do. Like even if it's a completely innocent mistake, sometimes something's just going to fly out of your mouth. Sometimes something is going to happen on an email, or you're going to accidentally send the wrong email to the wrong client. There's all kinds of mistakes that can happen. Like, there's no need to feel ashamed about it. Like, we all have to learn it and figure it out together. And our teams are so much more open and happy when they understand those vulnerabilities. Like, they're going to work harder for you because they know they can be real with you. They're going to mirror back what you give to them. And then you're going to have a team that's going to do more for you in the long run too. So it really does benefit everybody. I just think it sucks so bad, especially women were expected to know how to do all this stuff. It's like, why? Likability isn't management. It's helpful to build a relationship, but what happens after the first day? Do you know what to do after that? Probably not. You got to figure it out. Like, there's no shame in needing to get support in those things. There's no reason that we would know that.
Okay, this is a conversation that I need to. Okay, first of all, I genuinely have a nightmare that I've accidentally flashed a client. I think I'll be on like TikTok live or something, and like for some of my clients, I go live on TikTok, and I'm like, what a nightmare it would be if like my shirt smelled. I'm so scared. Like, that's awful. That's
well, so I'm living your nightmare with my number one team member that I would literally die without. So luckily she forgave me, but we joke about it all the time. But I mean, you know, it's just one of those things that's like in normal situations, like that would be something that I like literally like written apology, like offer time off. Like, you know, you want to do like, do you need to recover? This is sexual harassment, whatever. She just looked at me and she was like, no, like that was ridiculous. Neither of us knew what to say. She's like, you thought about that way more than I did, you know, like, so it's a weird situation, but like, I don't know. I feel like we all have them, but why is no one talking about them? You know, like we should talk about this stuff. Like, it's more fun anyway than talking about like taxes or whatever. So,
yeah. And I love that you talked about even the shame around not knowing how to do certain things as an entrepreneur. Because I'm someone that, you know, all my life I've been told, oh, you're a great leader. And I do believe I'm a great leader. And I loved how you just explained that you can be a good leader and not know how to manage a team, because that's a whole different skill that you need to develop. That was like so cemented here, because I always thought like, yeah, I'll be good at that. And then I'm like immediately not good at it. And I'm like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I'm awful at this. Like the amount of conversations I've had with my therapist, my business mentor, my boyfriend, being like, I don't think I was meant to do this. I'm not good at running a business. I don't know what I'm doing. And that's so not true. It's just a skill that you need to learn. I think that's a
Totally.
perfect way to describe that. Even most successful people, they have to learn how to do everything. You have to learn how to do sales. You have to learn how to manage a team. You have to learn how to do back end of business stuff, technical stuff. There's all these skills involved that you just can't really be naturally good at. It's not a born with thing. Typically, if you are, that's amazing.
I mean, I think, there are natural born leaders, like you mentioned, like you've always been told you were a leader. There are definitely people out there. I relate to that. You're always the captain of the team. You're always the one people look to. Like, that's how we become entrepreneurs, because we can dip our toes in lots of different areas. We can adapt to other people. Like, we can understand other people. We can step into sales really easily, those types of roles. And also, when we're leading people, learning how to manage people is not ever something you're done with, because you're not managing the same person at the same moment for the rest of your life. So you could have a team of 10 people and all of them need you to step into a different mode at a different time at any given moment. And then also, let's throw that into, are you in a launch period? Are they under a lot of stress? Are they going through something at home? Are they having a conflict with a fellow coworker? Did their internet go out and stress them out? There's all these things that contribute to it. So it's really less about knowing what to do in different situations, but more about knowing who you are and understanding the values that are propelling your decisions forward. And that just comes with working on yourself and investing yourself truly as a manager. And that's why we have that leg of our business, because our business owners that we build out their teams and help them with their growth plan are like, okay, cool. Now what do I do with all these people? And it's like, well, let's figure out who you are as a leader first, and then let's talk about how you can talk to them. Because if you just read some random book, they're going to tell one specific leader of one specific type of business, usually in corporate, usually a man, usually something really boring, like job wise, how to run a meeting or have a business or whatever. But they're not actually telling you, Kelsie, who's had a business for a shorter period of time, that's just building your team, that has different types of relationships with your team members in a job that not a lot of people have done before, like owning a social media agency, being a creator, being a creative. Who's writing books on that? That's telling you how to run a team? Probably no one. You can do it. You should write it. I'll help you. Like, those books should be out there, like that's the thing. Like, we got to figure it out. We're figuring it out as we go. That's why it's so freaking stressful.
It's so funny. Every time I have to fill out any sort of thing, and it's, tax or whatever. It's like, what do you do for a living? Like, my job isn't on the drop down. Like, it doesn't exist. I'm like, I'm other. I'm always other. But yeah, that's so true. I'm like super empathetic person too. Managing a team, I'm always like, where's everyone at? What's going on? I like connect to that way. Yeah, it's a crazy thing for sure. Also, somebody who never had any sort of corporate professional experience. I went from waitressing retail jobs to owning a business. So I don't know how these things are supposed to go. And it's really fun because most of the people on my team have a corporate background and they've worked in those things before. So the way that they talk on Slack, for example, is so funny to me because I'm talking like a 24-year-old girl with my friends texting, and they're just feeling professional. Let's not pretend we're not girls in our early 20s. Let's talk like we're girls in our early 20s. What else is here? It's totally fine. Just be funny and ourselves, and of course I'm immortal in a way, literally. But we can just be, I don't know. It's always so weird for it to suddenly become this different mask of way to talk. Of course, I would be professional to a certain extent, but also just everyone feel comfortable. I just thought that was a funny thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also comes down to, like, if we were working together on your business, like throwing it out there that like you are the authority in your business, regardless of what other freaking experience your team has, or, how they're talking on Slack or whatever, and like defining what that you want that culture to look like, and then inviting people to come in and adapt to it, and truly be themselves. That's how you're going to find people that are going to be with you for a long time. And that is not to say that you're not going to learn from people who have different experiences from you. But what I've learned about working with people because I've worked in corporate as well, had a lot of really weird experiences, all of that. But what I've learned is that we don't need to focus on what we're bringing from other positions. And if anything, I would draw a line in the sand of like, I know may have been what your experience was like before, but this is what it's like here. And just standing fully behind it in a way that feels really confident and also freeing to you will allow you to kind of step into that authority, and they can still show up however they feel the most comfortable. But we can learn a lot from people that worked at corporate, but most of the time it's learning what we don't want to do. Like, I really hate when I know, and I'm not saying that this is you, but I do have some clients that feel intimidated sometimes by hiring higher level people that were maybe up in the higher ranks of corporate for their successful small business with a small team because they're intimidated by their experience. But I guarantee you that I am better at HR and people operations than any HR person that worked in corporate, because I've had to touch every single thing with no support. And that's exactly how you are and how our peers are as entrepreneurs. We've had to touch it all. We're going to be way more experienced in running an actual team than Jeff Bezos. Like, where is that guy on his dick rocket? Like, who cares? Sorry. It's like, I'm not going to ask him for advice on how to manage a team. Like, his people are peeing in cups in the corners of warehouses. Like, corporate isn't the end all, and we're changing it, and we got to lean into it and be confident about it, especially because you're young, and I don't want you to walk into I'm like mentoring you. I don't want you to walk into this team building environment. Like, you've got your stuff going on. Like, embrace it, because that's where people are going to come to you and be like, Kelsie, you let me know when you're ready to work for me. I have 10 years of experience, but I want to work with you because you're the culture that I want to work for. And that's how we make a true impact in our businesses, not just by the clients we serve, but by the people that we employ, because we're changing their lives every single day. And I think that we overlook that sometimes. We get intimidated. Our imposter syndrome sneaks up on us. Why do we deserve to be here? Why do I deserve to have a voice? And when we have a team, you just have to accept that you do have a voice, and they do need to know what you're going to say, and what you do say is valuable. And if you have to change your mind, it's totally fine. Like, you can totally make mistakes. It's no big deal.
Totally. I absolutely love all that. I feel like everything you're saying is just like, oh, that's so validating to me. I love creating a good work culture. That was something, even like months before I even thought about hiring someone, I was like, it would be so cool one day. Of course, it's always in my mind, one day I would love to have a scalable business and a team. And I always thought about how important it would be to create an environment where people would actually want to work, and they would stay around for a while, and they would feel like they're treated fairly, and we have fun. Like, why don't more companies do that? Like, I look at these companies where people are, like Amazon, where these poor people are just not having a good time, and it's not fair. Jeff Bezos on his yacht, and these people are, you know what I mean? I always thought that was crazy, and I get it from, most older businessmen are like, as much profit as possible. That's the KPI of success. That is the only thing they care about. They're not thinking about that. And like, to me, the thing that would make me most excited is having a company that I'm proud of, and people talk well about. The people inside of it talk well about. They have a good time. People want to work there. My favorite thing ever is my DMs are always absolutely stacked full with people being like, can I work for you? Can I work for you? I'm like, that's the coolest thing ever to me. I love that people want to work for me. That is incredible. So that's something super important to me. And I know you focus a lot on that too. So I want to talk to you about that, about creating a healthy and good work environment. And I know you've experienced bad. So tell us about the differences between a bad work environment and a good one.
Yeah. I mean, I think that most people want, like how you were talking about, why don't more people do this? Like, why don't people, like, I want to build a culture. I want to build a scalable team. And you say that with such confidence and conviction that it's probably like everybody wants this. But truthfully, I thought when I created this business that I was going to be able to duplicate our employee handbook and everybody was going to want the same fun culture and blah, 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 blah. That's not the case. I hear something different from every single person based on our values. And it's not bad. It's just that while your priorities might be what they are now, you want to scale this business. You want to get people in the door, like, and I'm putting words in your mouth for an example, but you want to have people working for you. You want to get bigger. You want to serve more people. You want to build a team. You want to lead a team. You want to be awesome at leading a team. Like all of these things, that may not be the case for the next business. That business might be like, I want to have 2 team members. I want to hit $450K a year. I want to pay them well. And I don't really want to have meetings. I want to have a completely asynchronous environment. We talk on Slack sometimes, but everybody just does their job and they move on with their life. And that culture is going to attract people that really respond to that. But the difference between the bad and the good culture isn't really bad and good, although we can talk about that on the more HR compliance front. But I think in the way that's going to benefit you and your audience is to just say that the difference is really the clarity about what's expected. Because if you're able to set up what it feels, looks, and is like to work for you before somebody signs on the dotted line for your job descriptions and your, your policies and all of that stuff, then they're walking into something that they can expect. And that clarity is kindness. And especially when it comes to how you're treated by your manager. So the one thing I tell everyone through our management courses and everything is just whatever type of manager you are, just be that all the time. And I even will have them sit down before they take our management course, sit down with their team and say, hey, listen, I'm going through a management course right now. It's going to change the way that I communicate with you a little bit. It's overall going to be in the best interest of our whole team. I'm pumped about it. I'm developing myself, but you may see changes in what you're used to. So I don't know exactly how that's going to manifest, but don't let it kind of erode the trust that we've built with how we communicate, because I'm growing and changing and I'm doing it intentionally. Because sometimes people can have the best of intentions and try to make the best decisions and change the way they're communicating, but their team's like, whoa, that's not the Kelsie I've been working with. So you might say all the right things, but your team member's going to be like, where did that come from? And what HR lady wrote her that script? Because I don't know her anymore. And now I don't know what I'm dealing with. I don't know what to expect. I don't feel safe here. And it's little things like that that make the biggest difference. Like walking into a situation and not knowing what you're going to get is one of the most scary things, especially when you're relying on this person to help you pay your bills. And I think that's one of the things that we can do for people is we can just let them know what it's like up front and be really clear about it and be really straightforward and be really intentional about the culture that we're building. And I don't really mean that in like a fluffy way. I mean, like it can be something as simple as, hey, Jessica, like you are so professional on Slack. Like it's really interesting. And I feel like you're so valuable, but don't be afraid to let loose a little. Like send me a GIF every now and then. Like, don't be afraid to like open up. Like, let's have a one-on-one. Like, I want you to feel comfortable with just like shooting out your ideas without thinking about it too much. Like, I want to like spark that creativity in you. Like, I don't want you to feel like you have to sit down and edit everything that you're writing in your Slack message. I'm the same way. I'm like, don't even capitalize stuff. And like, I'm always like, listen, if you come on board, let's brainstorm, let's spitfire, like let's go back and forth. Like I want to talk about stuff. I don't want to edit things and all of that. Like, and if that's the culture you want to have, that's an impact. Like having people show up and say what they're thinking and put themselves out there in a way that's a little bit more informal. That is actually something you might want to address and just be like, listen, like, I want to know what you're thinking as you're thinking it. I want to hear what your thoughts are. I don't want you to feel edited. I don't want you to feel like you have to hold back. I want you to feel safe to say some weird stuff or have some weird ideas. Like, what that tells me is that they are really trying to impress you. And it might help a little bit to sit down with them and be like, I love all these things that you're doing for me, but don't be afraid to throw out some bad ideas too. Like, I'd love to hear what you're thinking in your thought process. Like there's little things that we can find in how we're managing our team to help contribute to that culture, because how those first few team members act are also how your team members are going to act forever, unless they all quit and you hire new people. Like right. That's, and hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm so grateful for my team. Yeah, the open communication I think is huge, and right off the bat, I just have a preconceived idea of like, okay, a leader or a manager or the founder or whatever, I am the owner of the company. I need to know everything. They can't know that I don't know what I'm doing. That was one of the biggest things that hindered me from hiring a team, because I was like, I don't want them to find out that I don't actually know what I'm doing.
Right.
When I first brought them on, and by the way, I'm very much like, I just do things so I don't think about it. So when I started the agency, it wasn't a business at all. I just like hired people who absolutely know systems or plan, organization. It was an absolute disaster. And I didn't communicate to them that I didn't know what I was doing. I was like trying to put on this face that everything was fine. And then they didn't get paid the first month. I was like, oh shit, okay, you guys, I figured that out. I'm like, there's so much that went wrong. And I was eventually I was so stressed. I just went small, and I was like, I actually sent them, I think it's like a video that I recorded on my phone. I sent it to them, and I was like, listen, I don't know what the F I'm doing. I'm so sorry. You all have patience. And they all stayed with me, like so loyal, so patient, stuck it out, and now we're at this really, really great place. But if I had just kept going with that, they would have been like, dude, what the F is going on? I'm getting out of here. I don't know what's going on. But when I would just communicate with them, like, hey, we're all starting this from, like, you're helping me start this, and I appreciate you guys being here, and I'm figuring it out. And, being open and just honest, it was like a weight off my shoulders. And now we have really great open communication. But for any business owners out there that are trying to hide things from your team, like, just be honest, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's great. Like, it sounds like you're really natural at this, like being vulnerable and opening up and being honest. Like, I think we are going to hold back from growth if we're not afraid to look a little bit stupid. And especially when it comes to team, like, just tell, I mean, it is. We have so many clients that are like, I just have to build all my SOPs out and then I'll hire somebody. And I literally had a call with a client this morning and I was like, I know you want to build all this out and then hire the ops person, but why not hire the ops person and then train them at the same exact time? And then they can build it out for you. Like, that's going to be so much more depth of knowledge, and you aren't doing it twice. You're doing it once. It's actually super time efficient. Sorry, my dog's like screaming out there. But there's just this like element of we have to be perfect when we show up for other people, especially, and we don't. And I think that as long as you're not like, hey, I have these KPIs that I want you to meet, but I'm not giving you any of the resources or tools to get there, that's a problem. But if you're like, let's figure it out, then people are going to be like, okay, like, you know, how do you want, and you'll figure it out as you go. Like, you're going to evolve and develop. Maybe you'll start another business. So you'll look like there'll be different type of leadership through that team, but just being open and transparent is going to be, it's really honestly hard to do. Like, for, you're kind of like, yeah, I let them know. I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry, you didn't get paid. Like, it's no big deal. But other people, other business owners would feel like that was like their biggest failure. And I'm like, you got to just like show up the way that you are. Like, people want to work for you because of your culture, not because you're perfect, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that was
it's
a great
cool that you
realization.
said that.
After I let them know that, they were like, "It's cool, girl. Like, we like you. We like working here. Don't worry. Like, we're here. We're all gonna help each other." I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, sweet. People didn't assume that I was perfect. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That was just me myself."
Oh my God, right? It's wild. The therapy stuff really helps with all that. Like, I mean, you mentioned you're in therapy. I have like a whole blog about all these things I learned in therapy. One of the big ones is like, don't believe everything you think. And I have to constantly bring that up in business because I think I know everything. I've been doing this for a long time, you know? So I'm constantly checking myself. Is this the right move? Like, or is this just some belief I taught myself because I was in survival mode when I decided this was the framework for it, or this is how I want to approach the topic, or, you know, whatever the case may be. Like, we just have to be able to question ourselves and allow other people to question us too, while still being the authority and still being the person that, you know, draws the boundaries and draws the lines in the sand. But
Yeah,
it's a new
yeah,
level
that's
of
important.
crazy.
Yeah, making sure people feel comfortable coming to you with anything and not. I would hate if people felt scared of me or that they wanted, like, as open as I am, I want everyone to be open with me. So I feel like it's a cool thing to be able to make that culture. I've had
Yeah.
scary bosses in the past, so I always thought, why? If I was a boss, I would never be like that. So,
I
well, not.
know. And honestly, like, those bosses, like the ones that are maybe not as collaborative as you or as open as you are, as you're saying, and how you are wanting to build your culture, those people have great employees out there too. They will be attracted to, that's why you don't work at those companies anymore. It just wasn't the right mix. And that does happen sometimes when we interview people and then they start and it doesn't work out or whatever. It's not a failure. It's just helping somebody find their way to their next thing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be this big, like, tragedy, you know? Like, the more fluid you are and the more able you are to make conscious decisions and adapt, then your team's going to just get better and better and better, and your business is going to grow as a result to it. But I mean, every day I can tell when my team members are like, do you think you should be doing that or should I be doing it? And I'm like, sorry.
That's like, it's hard to take that habit of just automatically doing things. It's like a skill you need to develop. Yeah, every day I'm like, write my to-do list and I'm like, what can I not do in this list that I can give some more commitment? Work in progress. That life is a work in progress.
Yeah. I mean, I know, like, for you, you probably spend a lot of time like being a creator and like needing to be inspired by things that you find. Like, you need that white space. And I know when we work with a lot of creative people, like, even if they're like graphic designers, web designers, or, you know, those are the first creative things that come into mind. But there's photographers or wedding planners, you know, all these different businesses that require a lot of creativity. You can't just put on your to-do list, like, be creative today. Usually, like, I have one client that it has a pretty big TikTok following, and she's like, some days I just, like, there are like weeks that go by where I'm like, I need to make 5 reels today, or I need to make 5 TikToks today, and I can't think of anything. But the second it's not on my to-do list and I can just lean into it, that's when I have, you know, the time and space to figure it out. And like, so really our tactic for them was to get all the little things off their to-do list so that they had the white space to create, and then they can always take a step back and add in some of those basic operations tasks. But being a creative business owner is totally different than corporate. Like we can't translate that at all. Like, and any creative business owner has to be a creator and has to be creative in some way, even just like your friendly HR lady. Like we got to create stuff all the time. So we got to be able to have that space to do it. And we often forget that that's the most valuable thing that we can be doing. And our team is there to help us support to have that space to do that.
That's so true. I think giving yourself permission to, just because my calendar is every single minute full, that doesn't mean it's not productive for me. It's something definitely that I often struggle with because I always feel like I need to be doing everything. I'm busy all the time. If I'm not busy, I'm lazy. If I'm not doing enough. It's so true. I'll sit down with content sometimes and I'm like, I have nothing. It's fine. I need to have some time to, get inspired and actually think of things. It's so true.
Yeah, I don't know how you all do it because I'm literally like, my content manager will like send me a reel sound or a TikTok sound and be like, go make this. And I'm like, I can't wrap the blanket around my head and walk around the hall shaking my butt. I just physically can't do it. Like,
So oh my god, sometimes I find myself in the middle of the day doing content and I like stop for a second and I like take it what I'm doing. I'm like, wow, if only, other people could see what I do. Family members are like, wow, we're so proud of you. Like, you must work so hard. I'm jumping on my couch, singing a song.
I know I batched a bunch of podcasts the other day and I was like, it looks like my friend was like, you have such a cool life. Like you get to like do this podcast. Everybody wants to have a podcast, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's only one part of it. But really what I'm doing is sitting in a room by myself, talking to myself. So I don't know how luxurious this life is.
Like, whenever I do solo episodes, because I have no problem talking, I was like, I don't know how you do it. I could just sit there and talk to a camera or a microphone. I'm like, believe me, I have no problem. I can do it for hours.
I know it's crazy too, because like just speaking even to that, like creating content for our business, it was like such a game changer for me to be like, oh, I have a podcast now that's a root of the rest of the content. Like it's like leaning into this, like how it's really easy for you to like sit in front of a mic and talk about what you know and what you're an expert at. Like I didn't think that if it was easy, then I was allowed to do it. I was like, I have to do that in my free time. Like I learned that the hard way too. It's like just because if it's easy for you, then try to do all the things that are easy for you, even if it's not a traditional thing that other people think you should be doing. And that productivity thing is such a shame builder too, like trying to be productive all the time. Like the best and most successful business owners I know are the ones that are like kind of creating as much white space as possible to connect with their communities and their audience and have conversations, and they're not above the DMs, and they're the ones that are actually generating like a crap ton of revenue. So it's like we were taught get off social media and be productive, and now it's like get on social media and like make some friends, because that's actually what's going to help you grow. It's crazy. We need to get rid of all these like norms. They're boring and I'm tired of them.
And like the huge thing too is like work is supposed to be hard. You're not supposed to enjoy it. It's work. Mm-hmm. So then when I find myself enjoying something, I'm like, oh my god, I'm wasting time right now. I'm enjoying myself. This isn't productive. Like, yeah, it's hard to be like right now. I'm having the best time. We're chilling. I'm having a conversation with someone that's really cool. But this is work. This is productive. I'm creating like this is productive. So it's hard to remember that sometimes to delegate the things that don't come as easily to me. And it's funny because a lot of the things that I'm like, I hate doing that. I suck at that. Some of my team members are like, that's my jam. I'll do it all day long. So being able to figure that out and be like, sweet, we could all be doing the things that make us feel good.
Oh my god, like you're the success story of all of our management courses. Like just to be able to recognize that, like helping people lean into their strengths and like being open with that and flexible. Like I feel like that's something that people really struggle with when they're building a team, and you figured it out so soon. So like you're doing great.
Thank you. That's great. That's great. Good to hear. I'm going so much easier on myself. I've been saying, I said this on my TikTok, I'm having my flop year this year. Like, I just decided to. And, like, it's still going well. But I just decided to put no pressure on myself, to be really easy on myself and see what happens. And it's going so well so far.
Leading into that flow, man. I mean, I know that it's like people talk about it and stuff, but like when you're really just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna like go with the flow and like adapt and see what happens, like things are so much like just listening to the universe, whatever it hands you. Like I know that's like really woo, and I'm not super woo, but the universe will constantly try to teach you the same lesson over and over again until you learn it. So I love how you called it like your flop year, where I'm like, you're like living the dream, girl.
Why not flop? It's I posted on TikTok and so many people are like, oh, I love that. Because 2022, I was like, if I don't improve every single day, I'm a failure. Like, it's only up and up and up and up. And then to try and top that, I was like, whoa, that's really hard. I should just chill. And it's so true. The opportunities now that have been coming to me and things that have been happening because I've just completely chilled out and just trusted the universe. So much better.
Yeah.
We're at peace.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we only have our own experience. This is getting like real in depth, but like we only have our own life and our own experiences and feelings and stuff to look back on. So like, I mean, I've been in that hustle. There's time for hustle and then there's time for flow, right? So like I've been in that as well, but it's just like what I was saying about like having my mental breakdown. Like nothing happened. Like I was just panicking about nothing. And then I like called business the next day. I'm like, how's everything going? And they're like, we're all good. You take all the time you need. We care about you. And flowers arriving at my door, like, all that. And it's like, what was I doing? Why am I making this harder for myself? And I think that women do that a lot in management because we think that we have to impress people. We want to like, put on a shiny object, like make it like this big cool thing. But like, I don't know. I've just noticed that like the more you lean into being like, whoops, that wasn't the best or, whatever, then your team's more understanding and your business like really reflects that like innovative and adaptable mentality. And people want to be in that energy. Like this is so easy to record. Like it's so easy to talk to you. Like I'm down to record again, like have you on my podcast. But some people are like, let's follow the script and let's make sure we hit these 3 results. And like, what is HR compliance? And I mean, I'm happy to answer those questions, but like, I feel like there's something to be said about the experience of the doing and not just, I think my therapist is like, maybe you can be a human being instead of a human doing this year. And I was like, I'll talk to you about that next year, Bonnie.
That's a better way to put it. That is way more therapeutic way to say it. That's so true, especially as women. I feel like you just always want to prove. You always want to be the hardest player, and you want, especially, it's like you feel like you're on this clock where you're obviously super young. There's this pressure to like do a lot of things while young. That's like more impressive, and you don't want it. Oh, I can't remember if it was okay. I read a podcast I listened to. This woman talking about how girls never want to drop the ball. You're a mom and you're working and you're doing everything. You never want to drop any balls. You're juggling everything. And she was like, drop the balls, drop them, because you'll realize that the world is spinning. If you don't clean your kitchen, the sun will rise tomorrow. If you mess up at work, you'll be okay. But you need to like start talking to the balls to learn that it's okay. Very similar to your situation where you were like, oh, we gotta hit this, and then you were like, oh, everything's okay, but you wouldn't have known. You would have killing yourself doing this. You didn't let it go a little bit.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Like, I mean, I know are we almost at time? I don't want to like waste too much time talking like on your podcast for hours, but I'm like, Kelsie, tell me more about it. But what do you think about that? Like in the creator space, like being a creative and like having to literally generate ideas from your brain and putting them out into the world to have people talk about them, make an impact, like thousands of people see it. Like, how do you ever get in your head about it? Like, this isn't just a TikTok, or this isn't just an Instagram reel, or this isn't just a post, or it's like a thing. It's like got its own mind. Like, do you ever get in your head about it, or is it more like let's just see what happens?
I think I am more of like let's see what happens. I'm very optimistic. I really think before I do things or before I speak, which isn't always a good thing. But I do love putting out content, and of course I have times where I'm like, I can't think of anything, but most of the time I always feel like I have to say and like creating putting stuff out. It wasn't until like there was a few times where things get, obviously there's like a viral moment, and then that piece of content has a mind, like you just said, like a mind of its own, and it's something totally different or taken out of context, and then thousands of people are giving their opinions, and sometimes they're not opinions that are good for me to hear, like they're being mean or something. And that was a hard thing to experience, I guess. And then it makes me definitely a little bit more aware of like, okay, how am I showing up online? Or at least just having in the back of my mind every time I post something, this could turn into something else. this could be taken a different way, and you kind of just have to live in that. And also, it's good. It's kind of very similar to dropping the ball and like realizing that it's okay. When I've had moments like that where I'm like, oh my god, this is the end. Like everyone hates me. This is awful. Like thousands of people are giving me hate. And then the next day I'm like, it's okay. Everyone leaves a comment and they keep scrolling, and it's totally fine. It's not a big deal. I'm a good person. I've never actually done anything bad. It was like stupid TikTok stuff that people disagree, and that's okay. So I think it's realizing that, like going through it was a good lesson, because then the next time I'm going to be like, hey, I know that in a day this will matter. It's just while you're in it, it sucks. But yeah, it's an interesting experience. I don't think humans were meant to be so accessible. I always talk about this. Like we're not meant to have thousands of people talking to us at once, especially in negative or positive way. I think both are like almost equally as damaging. To have thousands of people being like, you're the best is also not a good thing. So it's an interesting thing to navigate in your own mind.
Yeah, that's wild. I guess I don't know, like I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because it seems like a lot of the people, because everybody got canceled in 2020, and I don't mean that in a flippant way, because there's lots of value to the stands that people were taking and stuff. And it seems like those people that we were so adamant, like, get their platform out of here. Like they shouldn't be spreading this information, or, whatever it was. All these people got canceled, and now they're just kind of like slowly coming back into like society and like the psyche of like, my algorithms like popping people up that I forgot about. And I was like, didn't something, it's so crazy. Cause I always tell people that we work with is like, when you're starting your business or you're creating content or whatever, like we're putting ourselves out there. And I always try to think about like the 30-second rule. And I try to do this with team too, is it's like, even if you screw up, like nobody's going to give a shit for more than 30 seconds. So like, if you can handle somebody thinking you're stupid for 30 seconds, then like do whatever you want and see what happens. But that lifespan does last longer than 30 seconds when you have so many like eyes on you. But also like, it can't last that long, because it's only been 3 years and these people were like basically in cancellation jail, and now they're like back on TV. So like it can't, hopefully that culture is kind of like falling off, but it's a double-edged sword, because we don't want people to be able to spread bad messages of hate and stuff like that. But it must feel like a lot of pressure to like run a business and then be able to turn that off and be like, I have to go be a creator now. Like I'm never done running my business, and you have a business that is the same, like we have the same size team, and we're agency models serving people, like showing up for people. So like to have to turn that off and then go and be creative, like I don't know how you can even do that. Like that sounds impossible. I mean, we'll create you a job description for sure, but I'm like, girl, like that is so hard. Like I'd hesitate. Like I think I have 2 things on TikTok, and both of them I'm like, oh my God, like the Gen Zs are coming for me, like
I'm busy, but like they're scary. Those are the people that I think not even cancel culture anymore. It's the like, what about? No, and like you have to be. Like, yeah, I'm obviously all inclusivity. You can't. Sometimes you just say something and it's not that deep, and people are like, oh, what are these people? Like, well, I'm sorry. I do have to say in the video, sorry, I'm talking to you. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what we're doing now with a lot of the younger Gen Z isn't canceling anymore. Some people do deserve to be canceled. Okay, I think there's some productivity in that. Some people are very bad people, and they shouldn't have a platform. They should listen to people who buy from these people. They're not good people. Me saying something silly on TikTok, we don't need to. Like, I don't know. I have like 6 people, so I don't want to get into it. It's just like, what? Like, mind blowing sometimes. So it's fun. But yeah, without creating and this is okay. I don't know. I feel like I just take things and I guess things, and then I don't realize I'm doing a lot. Like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really busy. I'm doing a lot. I'm tired. And then when someone else is like, oh, how are you doing that? I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's kind of a lot. But I guess it's because I enjoy it. When you enjoy stuff, it's like, you probably know your business. Like, I enjoy it. It's always easy, but
yeah. I mean, it's such an interesting thing to think about. I don't know. It's like, because the creators that we've worked with, they never give themselves enough time to create when they're thinking about their roles within their company. And I think that part of it is like, oh, well, this TikTok can only be 3 minutes long, so like whatever. But really, it's like, I don't think it's 3 minutes of work. Like, I can't tell you for sure because I don't know what the hell is going on over there. But like, I definitely don't think it's 3. So it's kind of like, that is a revenue generating activity where like even when I was in business school, it's like, what are the revenue generating activities? And they're literal tasks on a piece of paper, phone calls that need to be made, sales calls that need to be done. And now it's like, no, creativity is a revenue generating activity. And I love to see that like tapped into on teams. But it also creates a space where we do need to have really robust and specific teams to support the results from the creativity in order to keep doing it. And it can be really fun to build those structures out for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting because since I kind of built my agency off of my personal brand, that was the longest time, like our biggest, it still is like our biggest lead generation is my content. Like I need to be posting, so we should lead generation. And now, yes, and once I realized, I was like, this isn't like, I don't have to depend on that forever. So now we're exploring other ways to do lead generation, having people on my team, we'll have like an agency TikTok where we can kind of, it's not just me and my things, it's everybody. So yeah, it's been really fun to explore other ways. I think there's a lot of creators that have developed businesses off of their personal brand, and I think that's a really powerful business model. But you have to think about it scalability wise. I'm like, I might not want to make TikToks when I'm 50. I don't know, maybe I will. But if I don't, and this is our only lead generation, it might be an issue. So you have to think of other ways. But I don't know, it's like a game to me. Business is fun. It's a cool thing. Like that.
Yeah, that is cool. I know, it's weird. I had another client. She's a little older, but she is like pretty good with digital marketing, and she runs webinars and has like a pretty big Facebook group, like kind of a little bit more old school like way of lead generation at this point, but like, that it changes every year. And she was like, I'm going to be 50 in 15 years. Am I still going to be running this webinar that's like, and I was like, I don't know, maybe, but like, I don't think so. I was like, I don't think people are going to go to it if that's still going on. Like the industry changes, you got to kind of be able to adapt. And that's what I think people get stuck on the team stuff because they get really specific in the task. So like we're a business that does a webinar every 90 days and our lead funnel follows through with that and blah, blah, blah. And then you build a job that's like build a funnel, maintain a funnel, whatever. When really it's like, no, let's hire the people that want to come up with the ideas, but they can still maintain the tech. Like let's find the people that want to do like a grow and adapt with us. And, that all leads into being a creative business owner because we can't expect to do the same thing. Like you might be posting on TikTok when you're 50, but I don't know if anyone will be there. So it might be just for fun.
Yeah. Right. That's the whole thing. A lot of people came to me when I started my agency. They were like, because we really specialize in Instagram and TikTok, short form video content. And they're like, well, TikTok's not going to be around forever. Short form content isn't going to be the thing forever. Like, then what? I'm like, then we'll offer something different. We're a social media agency. We're a digital agency. We're just whatever the cool thing is. That's what we're offering, and that's what we'll be. So it's not like I'm not like we are a Facebook agency. Like no, we're just adapt. It's cool, and I like that. That's why I chose to be. I wouldn't choose to be in the social media industry if I didn't like to adapt to new things.
Yeah, I would say it's like completely different. Like I don't even know, like I started my membership because I looked up a community manager job role and the ones that came up were like for apartment buildings. And I was like, wait, I've got like 11 clients that need a community manager for their online communities, like through their platforms and stuff like that. Like, and you're telling me that this is a community manager for like a senior living home. That's the only job description that's out there. Like, I was like, well, I think we found where our business is going to fit in. And the other one that was weird too, is I could not find a social media manager job description that was like, mass market produced, like put out there by like big companies or whatever. At the time, because nobody really thought social media management was something that needed to be managed. They just thought it was like creative and whatever. And it was like, or it was like running ads. And it was like, okay, well, we'll write one then and give people a jumping off point. But even then, social media manager for you, working for you, is going to look totally different than a social media manager that I hire to work for my business. Those are two titles that are the same thing, but totally different jobs. So it's just fun to see how things develop and evolve, and like how your team can kind of embrace that too. Like your culture is very much like distinct, and it's easy for people to see like, well, if I've joined Kelsie's team, like I might be doing short form video for a while, but then who knows, like maybe something else is going to come out in a year and I'll have to learn about that,
Right. And that's totally back to people will find the management and like the business and the opportunity that they kind of fit into. Because for some people, this is a nightmare. Like I have friends that are like, your job to me, it looks so cool. That is a nightmare to change all the time and have to adapt. Like I like to be doing the same thing every day and knowing exactly what I need to do. I'm like, to me, that's a nightmare. So it's cool. Yeah. Everyone can find their little spot in the world.
Yeah, for sure. What's your favorite part of your job?
Oh, I mean, creating content, I love. That's kind of always been the forefront of what I do. I love to create content. Love it. I also really love managing my team. Like I said, that was kind of something that came later on that I didn't know I was going to love so much. So those two are probably my main things. I've also now just developed such a love for actually building out a business and figuring out like, okay, what are the offers? How are we going to get leads? Like I can definitely picture myself as like a serial entrepreneur where I will just keep starting businesses and then like starting new ones and new ones and new ones.
Oh, cool. I love that. Yeah, I always wonder if like content creators actually like doing it or not.
Yeah, I think it depends. I think some people get kind of thrown into it maybe and they're like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And then it depends why too, because I have a lot of content about business and I love business, so it kind of goes hand in hand. Some people, I mean, I would definitely get exhausted if I was, some sort of really specific, like a fitness influencer, a beauty influencer, and I didn't super love those things. I would be like, oh, this is exhausting. I have to post.
Yeah. I know, it's so crazy. I can't wait to see what happens and like how things develop, but
hey guys, this is an interruption during editing. Unfortunately, my mic completely cut out at the end, so we lost the last few minutes of our recording of this podcast. I am so sorry. This was a bit of a mess of an episode on my part, but I still hope you guys got tons of value and were able to enjoy the episode. I know I really enjoyed our conversation, and I will see you guys next week on the podcast. Bye.